Hey there, Terry. Hope you're having a great day today. This is your video lesson. Two things I want to talk about. I'll talk about those two things, and if you have questions at the end or want me to look at anything, feel free to shoot that on over, and I will do my best to answer. And I believe you also said you were working on some things out of the strumming book. I think it was chapter 3, the syncopation patterns. And obviously, I can't say anything until I get eyes on it. So if you send that over to me, I'll take a look and give my 2 cents. So I got your question, and it was in regards to into modes and how do you make a mode sound like a mode. Because really at the end of the day, it's just the notes of the master or the major scale, just you're laying on a different note. And that's actually a common misbelief about modes, is that literally they are just the same thing, you're just landing on the home note of the mode, and that's going to give you the mode. And that's not necessarily true, because you have to create the effect of like a different feeling is what they are. Before we want to talk about that though, I want to back up for a second and talk about something that's not really mentioned in the theory book over here. It's an awesome theory book, but there's something he kind of like just didn't talk about. It's probably like maybe TMI for a book like this. But since you asked the question, I'll go ahead and talk about it, and I think you can handle it, because I think you like this kind of stuff. So there is something called functional harmony, born out of the common practice period. The original GOAT, Johann Sebastian Bach, he didn't sit down with a rule book going, oh, I can't put those chords together, it doesn't work that way, my theory teacher's gonna get mad at me, no one's gonna listen to music. No, he just wrote, and then theoreticians come later on and go, hey, that's cool, I like that, let's do more of that, let's put it in a book and then sell it at the university bookstore, and we'll start a program and we'll teach all the students this common practice stuff. That's what's common practice. It is your standard harmony. Chords have function, right? So when you did the Roman numeral, and this is on page, for reference, if you want to brush up on the Roman numerals, this is on page 22 and 23 out of the theory book. With the Roman numerals. So each one of those Roman numerals, the 1 through 7, in common practice, 250 years between Bach and the 20th century, right, is functional harmony. Chords have a role to play in chord progressions. They each serve their own purpose. So if you look at the 1 chord, that's called the tonic. That's the home bass chord of the chord progression, right? So if I'm playing a chord progression starting on G in the key of G, G, C, D, back to G right there, I've gone on a journey. I've gone from my tonic chord, I went predominant, could either be the 2 chord or the 4 chord. It's not going to be a 5 chord, it's not going to magically be a predominant chord. It doesn't work that way in functional harmony. The 1 chord is tonic, and it will always be that in functional harmony. Predominant chords are going to be the 2 or the 4 chord. They're always going to be predominant in functional harmony. And then dominant is the 5 chord. It's the furthest we're going to get away in terms of tension. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that another time. So the dominant chord is the furthest we get in terms of creating tension in our chord progression. And then we resolve back to the tonic, the home bass chord, which is the 1 chord. And we go on that lifelong journey of home bass, preparing us for tension, and if I did that and walked away, I would be able to sleep at night, because it needs to go back to. And the reason for that is because for the last 250 years, that's just been the standard, right? We've always been used to hearing things going back to the tonic. And there's a dominant, which has the biggest pull. So the thing of the dominant is from, as far as a journey, is the tonic is your home. Your dominant is the furthest away you're going to get away from home. And then the tonic is a return back to your home base again, okay? And then there's a common chord progression that you have here that is the role of functional harmony. So if you're writing a chord progression, you want to have a very standard chord progression, right? It would follow this: 1, the 3 chord, the 6 chord, the 2 chord, the 4 chord, the 5, the 5/7, and then the 1. That is your extreme standard. If you look at Bach and things of the 18th, 19th century, and 20th century, early 20th, take that back, not all the 20th century. But if you look at your standard, Simon and Garfunkel or Peter, Paul and Mary, very nice. I got my 1 chord, G. My 3 chord is going to be B minor. And then my 6 is going to be E minor. Get out of here. So we had this. You've heard that a billion times. And then I go to a dominant chord, right? So in functional harmony, you want to have the one chord, and you proceed through these in order, right? So you go 1, you go 3, 6, 2, 5, 4, 5, but you can jump over them though. So you can start on a 1, you could do a 3, and then go 5 and 1. As long as you're moving in this direction, it's all cool in this style. It's all cool in this style. So you have a 1 chord. In that case, I had a 3 chord. I went to the 5 chord because that gives me the most tension and the most distance away from home base. And then I get back to my 1 chord. Like I said, this is all born out of, like, you know, the original seeds were planted by Bach, and then later theoreticians like really dug it, and then they kind of made the whole common practice period out of this. And if you go to school for music, this is the first thing that you learn in harmony class, and then you learn how to write chord progressions in this style, and then you start doing counterpoint, and then you start writing in the style of Bach, or writing in the chorale style writing. You do that for 2 years until it's beaten into your head. That is all great. And then they teach you how to break the rules afterwards, and that's the graduate school. So in this case right here, I have a G, I have a B minor, and then I have a D major chord, because that's the 5 chord. I can mix that up. I could put a 1 chord, I could put a 6 chord in there, I could put a 4 chord, a 5 chord, and then a 1. So G, E minor, because that's the 6 chord, and then to a 4 chord major, 5 chord, and you've heard this. Your whole life. You've heard that a million times, and it's been beaten into you, and that's why you hear this is right. So home bass, dominant, home bass, and that tonic dominant relationship is the backbone of functional harmony and common practice harmony. Now, what the heck why am I talking about this, and what does that do with modes? And the answer will be for next time when you come in, and we can talk more about you thinking about this for a while, and then we'll compare it to modal harmony and see if the same thing holds true. But I don't want to give you too much all at once. So wrap your head around functional harmony, that the chords have a role, right? Tonic is a home bass, predominant chords prepare you for tension. 5 chord, the 5 or diminished 7 chord is going to have the most tension, and then you have relaxation back into the 1 chord, and that's the backbone of Western music. And then ask me next time why modal music is so cool in like Dead Tunes and Neil Young and other things. This is fun to talk about. So wrap your head around functional harmony, and then we'll compare that to modal harmony next time, and that'll start giving you some answers. And as far as your real question that you asked me, is that modes, how to create the effect. And the first thing I'd like you to do, and I kind of mentioned this in the text message I sent over the other day, earlier today, was write out G major. And then if you did that, I'm not sure if you have time to do it by the time you watch this video, but you end up with G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. And then I want you to write out G mixolydian, right? And G mixolydian is the fifth, we'll talk about that later. If you read the chapter, has a flat 7 in it. Has a flat 7. And so what you do is you go G, A, B, C, D, E, and instead of having F sharp like you'd have in G major, you flat the 7 to be an F natural, right? You're lowering that half step. You're lowering that 7th by 1/2 step, and that gives you the note F. So why is that important? Is because if you played a song that had G major, right? That D major has an F sharp in there, right? So that's functional harmony, and that's just G major, that's in the key of G. So mixolydian ain't gonna have that, because you're not gonna have a D chord, because the D chord has an F sharp in it. You'd have to have like a D minor, right? But more of that in a second. So to get the sound of mixolydian, what you have to do is you have to isolate the flavor note of the mode. And the flavor note of the mode is the alteration from the major, right? What's called parallel major, right? So you have G major, right? and then you have G Mixolydian. And the only difference between those two things is instead of having an F sharp for the G major, you have an F natural, an F sharp for the major. You have an F natural for the Mixolydian. That's the difference. And what you have to do is you have to ping on that all the time. You have to target the root note of the mode, which is why we did the magic triangle and wearing notes across the fretboard. And now what you have to do is start isolating the flavor note of Mixolydian. And the flavor note of any mode is alteration from the parent scale. Okay. So we have our G Mixolydian. We have to know where G is. We have to be constantly reiterating that note. We have to introduce the flavor note of the mode. And the flavor note of Mixolydian is that flat 7, right? It's unique to that mode. So what's the flat 7 is the F natural. Like, okay, where's F natural? Where's F in all this? Oh, there it is, right there, right? So I have a note F, I have G, 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 F. Now it's not I didn't just pick this spot out of thin air. What I did was I went to my G major arpeggio to make this point B right here. To make mode sound like the mode, you have to outline the chord that you're playing, especially the root note. So I have my G chord here, right? And what I do is I go, okay, I want to make G, B, D. Oh, okay, that's the arpeggio contained inside the E form. Right? So I have my G, B, D, which is based off of this shape right here. Right? G, B, D. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the flat 7 to it. That note right there. Right? So I have my arpeggio, and I have my triad, a G major triad, and I'm adding the flat 7 into it to make it a G7 arpeggio. I think you already read that chapter in the book. We told you that already. G, G, B, D, F natural, G. I can add the F here too. F, 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 G, B, D, right? Now all of a sudden I have the sound of Mixolydian, right? Because if I just did this, those are all the notes of Mixolydian right there, but I'm not emphasizing the chord, the home bass chord of the mode, and I'm not emphasizing the flavor note of the mode. So you have to aim for the flavor note. And this is why I recommend starting with Mixolydian, even though you said you read the Dorian mode, but I would start with Mixolydian, especially for what you're trying to do. We're going to do Dorian, but start with Mixolydian, and then the conversation will be easier. So I have my... So I have my, and then my G right there. So I'm targeting, so when I'm doing that arpeggio, I'm forced to outline the home bass chord. I'm forced to know where the tonic is, the home bass note, right, of the mode, and I have to know where the flavor note is, the note that gives the mode its unique characteristic, because Dorian ain't gonna have flat 7. Aeolian ain't gonna have flat 7. It will have something else in it too, but the uniqueness of that flat 7, that only having the flat 7, that is unique to Mixolydian, and you have to have that in there to make it sound like the mode. So if I play a Mixolydian jam backtrack over here, if I pull up, that was ready, but it's all right. G Mixolydian backtrack, and I think this one should be a good one. I my arpeggio. I'm outlining the chord. Go ahead, I'll do that. Right? So I'm forced to outline those notes, and all the other notes would just obscure what I'm trying to do. So the more notes you introduce into this box pattern right here, the harder it is to maintain the feeling of the mode from the soloist point of view. That's why we start with just those notes, and we slowly add in the other notes of the Mixolydian mode, which are from the major, obviously, the parent scale. Let's go do it in your major boxes, because this will come in handy too. Now, that's the second part of the equation. The third part of the equation is that the chord progression has to have the home bass chord, which is the G, right? And it has to have another chord in there that has the flavor note of the mode. In this case right here, the F major chord has, surprise, surprise, has an F in it. Right, and if you look at those notes of the F major chord, F, A, C, and you have G, B, D, there you go, you have the notes of Mixolydian are all right there, but this is emphasizing that flat 7, the flavor note of Mixolydian. So if I picked another chord, say like G to D, has that F sharp in there, it's not going to work, it's not Mixolydian because it's an F sharp in it, and Mixolydian has the flat 7 in there. And so you probably recognize that tune. Something like that. China Cat, which is one I use for teaching Mixolydian. So the third piece of the equation is that that you have to have the home bass chord, and then a chord in there that emphasizes the flavor note of Mixolydian, in this case the flat 7. So cool. So hopefully that gives you a bit better answer as to how to go about creating the effect of a mode, rather than just theoretically knowing, oh, is this the same notes except for you're landing on that one note right there. That's true, but that's not going to give you the sound of the mode when you're soloing over top of it, right? You have to outline the chord repeatedly. You have to constantly be landing on the tonic note or the home bass note. Or no, I shouldn't say tonic, it's not functional harmony. You should be constantly landing on the home bass note of the mode, and then bringing out the flavor note, and then just doing that arpeggio. And then we'll add more notes to it later on, and then that way you'll see very clearly where all the notes are that you have to land on, and you'll know all the passing notes that are available to you. Eventually, if I did it one more time, if I do a full blast. With that. Cool, so I hope that answers your questions and maybe opens up some other questions that you might have, which we'll talk about next time. All right, man, I'll see you. Take care.